What's going on, people? Today I'm going to explain every devil in Chainsaw Man that was created from the fear of animals. This video here will break down the abilities and personality of all animal devils, and along the way we'll be avoiding major spoilers, although there will sometimes be background info from the manga that we need to talk about. Finally, before we get into it, be sure to hit that sub button if you want to see more Chainsaw Man content like this, and I'd appreciate if you dropped a like as well, as it does help out the channel. Okay, so starting off with Bucky the Chicken Devil, this one was introduced in chapter 98 and he is by far the weakest devil in the whole video. Since chickens are the most widely consumed animals on the planet, there are very few people who are actually afraid of them, and because of that, Bucky genuinely has no power. That's why when he first appeared, he was just the harmless class pet of a Japanese high school, as the teacher knew that he didn't pose a threat to any of the students. One thing that caught my attention about Bucky straight away was the fact that he was intelligent, because not only is he able to speak, but he was smart enough to come up with jokes and remember the names of individual kids. Prior to this, it was implied that only the stronger devils could be expected to have this level of brains, whereas the truly weak devils weren't on the same level. However, Bucky proved that this wasn't always the case, and for 3 months he integrated into the class and became loved by almost everyone. During that time, he never tried to run away since he knew that a stray dog or cat could easily kill him, so being in the classroom was actually safer than the outside world. In terms of design, the most noticeable thing about Bucky is that he's a headless chicken, which is likely a direct reference to Mike the Headless Chicken, who was a famous rooster from America that surprisingly survived for 18 months after being decapitated. Mike became so well known that he toured across the country with people paying money to get a look at him, and I think this plays into why Bucky wears a bow tie, because generally speaking, bow ties can be associated with animals who are being put on show. Final thing to mention about the Chicken Devil is that he was self-aware to the point where he refused to eat fried chicken, and he also expressed the fear of being eaten himself. Next up, we have Princey the Spider Devil, who's a hunter working for the Japanese government, alongside Denji, Power, and the rest of Special Division 4. Considering that fear of spiders is a relatively common phobia, Princey is shown to be a strong devil with some unique abilities, including the power to teleport other people. On her face, she has a zip running down the center, and when she wants to bring someone to her location, all she has to do is unzip her body, enabling them to emerge from the gaping hole. This power seems to work regardless of the distance between Princey and the person being teleported, although from what we've seen, it can only be done if both parties want it to happen. Being the Spider Devil, she understandably has 8 legs with sharp points on the end, and she can use them to hang upside down from the ceiling, chop the heads of zombies in one go, or stab her target from multiple angles. On top of that, she can seemingly become intangible, sort of like Mirio from My Hero Academia, but this is something she's only done one time as of making this video. This permeation means Princey can hide underground so that no one knows she's there, and when she's ready, she can quickly jump out and launch a surprise attack. Last thing to say about this character is that in chapter 34, Captain Kishibe implied that she has another form that looks more like a devil, but normally Princey chooses to look like this given that she's friendly towards humans. Following this, we have the Bat Devil, who was brilliantly brought to life in the anime, and his personality made him one of Denji's most memorable villains. Like all devils, he needs to drink blood to regenerate himself, but what makes the Bat special is that he had an almost encyclopedic knowledge of what tastes the best. For example, we learned from him that the blood of pregnant women makes a nice dessert, whereas the blood of other devils is probably the worst thing you can drink. His fascination with all the different flavors is directly connected to the fact that he is a bat, considering that vampire bats are known to feed on the blood of other animals, and of course the ultimate vampire Dracula could turn into one. Because of this, blood-sucking is a fear that humans associate with bats, which is why the Bat Devil acts the way he does. At some point, this led to him forming a romantic relationship with the LEECH Devil, who's another devil connected to blood-sucking, and together they had the dream of eating every human on the planet. Before that could happen though, the Bat Devil went into hiding after one of his arms was chopped off by a devil hunter, hence why he blackmailed Power to bring him someone to drink. Throughout this arc, we saw that the Bat was extremely ruthless, willing to sacrifice humans, animals, and even his own kind, as long as it served his own agenda. After then regenerating back to full strength, he showed off a ton of abilities, including his mouth cannon that blasted enough air to shatter a whole building. This power in particular was inspired by bats in real life, who use echolocation to navigate themselves through dark environments. Additionally, he has wings that enable him to fly through the sky at high speeds, and the bat's sense of smell seemed to be even stronger than the Blood Devil, as he could easily smell humans who were miles away. Now, after Denji killed this devil, something pretty interesting happened, but in order to explain it, we need to discuss some background info from the manga. To put it simply, in this world, as long as people still fear something, then a devil representing that thing will always be born again. What this means is that when a devil is killed on Earth like the Bat Devil was, then its spirit will be reincarnated down in hell with no memories from its previous life. In that way, the devil gains a whole new personality, and if it ever returns to Earth, then it can end up acting drastically different from what it used to be. When it comes to the Bat Devil, this was one of those cases, because when he naturally reappeared after Denji killed him, he became a brainless savage who couldn't talk, and whose only instinct was to kill whoever happened to be in front of him. Anyway, switching over to the Octopus Devil, this animal has a contract with Yoshida, who's a private devil hunter and high school student. During his appearances so far, Yoshida has proven to be highly skilled in combat, and he's able to incorporate devil powers into his fighting style. For instance, in chapter 61, he strategically summoned the Octopus Devil just before he took a huge hit, and then after he was thrown backwards, its massive tentacles were there to protect him. Following that, the devil sprayed large amounts of ink which covered the room in darkness, giving Yoshida the chance to briefly sneak through the shadows undetected. Against most enemies, this would give him the advantage, especially since he can then summon multiple giant tentacles at the same time. These tentacles can be used to effortlessly deal with large crowds, or they can be used to restrain someone and teleport them to a different location, something we see Yoshida do in chapter 110. In order to summon the octopus though, he needs to make a hand symbol by crossing his two fingers together, similar to how certain other devils require hand gestures to be summoned as well. Additionally, the Octopus Devil is independent enough to fight on Yoshida's behalf while he takes a break, and he even sometimes uses it to scan the nearby area for him so that he knows exactly who's nearby. Now, the first and only fiend on this list is the Shark Fiend, also known as Beam, and just like every other fiend, he's a devil living inside the corpse of a human. As far as his appearance goes, he normally has a shark snout poking out the front of his face, but the thing that makes him different from most fiends is that if he wants, he can fully transform into a devil. In this devil form, his whole body turns into a shark with 6 eyes, however, he does have the option to just partially transform his head. From the moment he was introduced, it was obvious that Beam has a history with Pochita, as the fiend constantly referred to him as Lord Chainsaw, and in chapter 49 he recounts in detail how the Chainsaw Devil used to fight back in the day. His respect for Pochita is so high that he puts his life on the line multiple times to protect Denji, even if that means taking point-blank attacks from powerful devils, and he also happily does anything Denji asks him to. Because he's a fiend, Beam's strength is weaker than what it used to be in his prime, but despite that he still possesses his main ability, which is permeation. With permeation, the Shark Devil can swim through any surface, including surfing across buildings, jumping through walls, or swimming underground. This level of intangibility is like a more useful version of what Princey can do, and it enables Beam to easily escape when he's in danger. The problem with this ability though is that if the Shark Fiend is carrying someone else, he doesn't have the power to make them intangible as well, so in that situation he's not able to fully pass through walls or do anything like that as long as he's holding the other person. Moving on to the Snake Devil, this one for me has got to be one of the most disturbing looking devils in the whole series. Besides having the long gigantic snake body, which is to be expected, what makes it so unsettling is that its mouth is made from human arms, topped off with these tiny teeth that kind of resemble the xenomorphs from the Alien franchise. When the author of Chainsaw Man, Fujimoto, was in the concept stage, he initially drew the Snake Devil to be a lot less intimidating, but given that it's meant to be such a menacing threat, it makes sense why the horror was cranked up for the final thing. Regarding the snake's potential, so far the only human it's made a contract with is Sawatari, and she's been able to use its power in a few different ways. For example, in chapter 25, she used its giant mouth to completely swallow another strong devil, comparable to how in real life, certain snakes are able to swallow large animals like crocodiles or even cows. By eating another devil, Sawatari and the snake then gain a degree of control over it, and in future battles, the snake can vomit it back out and make it fight for them. Another thing about the snake is that although it's incredibly fast, it's not so fast that a skilled devil hunter won't be able to avoid it. Next in line we have the Leech Devil, who was briefly mentioned earlier in the video, and just like her boyfriend, she ended up getting brutally torn apart by the public safety devil hunters. On her introduction, she had a huge body that towered over Denji completely, and was strong enough to sever his arm without even really trying. Just like the Bat, she had an inherent hatred for all humans on Earth, but interestingly she was willing to let her boyfriend's killer go free just because he had a good looking face. To me, this shows that she clearly wasn't on the same level when it came to his ruthless mindset, considering that he did this to power just because he gave him some bad blood. On that topic, the Leech Devil also didn't mind consuming Denji's hybrid blood, even though the Bat Devil acted like it was the most disgusting thing he'd ever had, showing that, despite both being based off blood-sucking creatures, their senses of taste might not be as similar as we'd expect. Anyway, while it's true that we didn't get to see the Leech Devil fight for very long, it's fair to say that Denji was almost able to match her even when he couldn't transform into Chainsaw Man. if he'd been able to regenerate, then I'm fairly certain he would have ripped her to shreds, but in his human form she was eventually able to spear him using her tongue. Luckily for Denji, Aki had been tracking his movements and showed up at the exact right time to save him along with the Fox Devil. The Fox is by far the most popular devil among Japan's public safety hunters, with Aki, Arai, and several others forming contracts with her over the years. By making this special gesture and aiming at the target within the hole, hunters can summon the devil to their location as long as they say the word kon, which is the Japanese equivalent to saying woof but specifically for foxes. However, not everyone with a contract can use the full extent of its abilities like this, as the devil only allows attractive people to summon her head. What that means is that number 1, she thinks Aki is good looking, which is fair enough, and number 2, just like the leech, these devils can be just as superficial as humans. In my opinion, this is because all devils are created from one human emotion, which is fear, so it makes sense that other human traits like romance and favoritism would occasionally manifest themselves. Whatever the reason, the Fox Devil's jaw is super powerful as it was able to crush the Leech Devil's body in a single bite and chomp through a building without much trouble. When it comes to the other devil hunters who aren't as good looking as this, the Fox's paw is the most useful body part, since it can be used to attack incoming enemies, whether it's one person or an entire group. Similar to the Snake Devil though, the paw isn't so fast that it's unavoidable, because on more than one occasion enemies have been able to dodge this attack completely. In terms of design, this devil has one of the best in the series, taking on the appearance of a giant white fox with multiple red eyes spread across both her head and her paws. Prior to the anime coming out, most of the fan art usually gave her orange fur instead of white, which personally I think looked even better, but regardless, either color still works perfectly fine. Finally, to wrap this video up, we have 5 devils that we know virtually nothing about besides their physical appearance, and those are the Fish Devil, Sea Cucumber Devil, Cockroach Devil, Mantis Devil, and Pig Devil. The Fish Devil first appeared in episode 5 of the anime, having already been defeated by Aki, and its corpse was surrounded by what looked like a bunch of fish eggs. Its main body weirdly had 2 tails and 6 insect-looking legs, but it's possible this appearance might be the result of it receiving a power-up from the Gun Devil. The Sea Cucumber Devil was another underwater creature that manifested in the anime, and before power smashed it to pieces, there was a skull and dozens of decomposing fingers poking out of its fleshy body. Considering that most cucumbers typically live deep in the sea, this design could be referring to humans over the years who have died in the ocean and whose bodies have never been recovered, because it seems like a good reason why these body parts would be so highly integrated into its appearance. The Cockroach Devil is next up, and this one is basically a highly intelligent kaiju. Generally speaking, roaches are associated with being resilient insects that can survive almost anything, including a nuclear war. And regardless of whether that's actually true, it's still something that a lot of people believe. For that reason, it shouldn't be a surprise that the Cockroach Devil had thick layers of bone protecting his body, and his high level of intelligence was directly comparable to the Bat Devil. As an example, they both openly questioned why Chainsaw Man would side with humans instead of devils, and they each gave Denji a test to see how much of a hero he really is. In the Bat Devil's case, he threw a car with someone inside, only to realize that Chainsaw Man didn't care about this guy's life at all. Similarly, the Cockroach Devil gave him the option to save a young student with a bright future or a car full of old men, but again, Chainsaw Man didn't care about either of them, and instead he prioritized saving a nearby cat. Moving on, in chapter 41, the Pig Devil made its first and only appearance of the series, and the most notable thing about it is that before public safety arrived, the devil had eaten a private devil hunter. The hunter in question had his legs ripped off, but was somehow still able to survive inside the pig's guts, forcing a reluctant Aki to put him out of his misery. Lastly, the Praying Mantis Devil has also only made one single appearance in the manga, showing up in chapter 91 after being summoned by 2 devil hunters. By clasping their hands together, the mantis's leg burst out of the ground and was used to slice a nearby devil, although the agents were still immediately killed by that devil seconds later. With that said, that completes our list of all animal devils that have appeared in Chainsaw Man so far, and if you enjoyed this video then be sure to drop a like and hit that sub button so you don't miss future videos like this. Until the next one, peace out.